Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the modern market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and the Javier Milei coin market. Getting into the discussion today, we've got loaded up the Milei interview on Libra scandal goes live. He says he did not promote Libra, he just shared it. Interesting distinction. We'll dive into that, get into what was shared in the interview. We'll also look at some various admissions and pieces of news coming out of Meteora founder resigning, as Jupiter and other statements say he was not complicit, but did show some bad judgment. So we'll dive into that. And then finally, in some hopefully more positive news, HyperEVM went live without any forewarning. They just did no announcements, no hype, ironically, no nothing, just launched the damn chain. Pretty impressive stuff. We're going to be talking about all those things in a bit. We've also got the latest on price action on crypto and NFTs, general market discussion too. And so stay tuned. So today I've got Legendary in the co-host seat with me. We're ready to get into it. But just a reminder, friends, just before we do, as always, this show is not financial advice. Nothing we say or do should be considered so. So please proceed with caution. This market is very risky, and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Legendary, it is Tuesday. It's the 18th of February. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
GM doing pretty well. Trying to stay positive given the negativity and toxicity on the timeline, which might be a bit hard over the last couple of days. But I also seen Whale just posting that he's muted Libra, he's muted Hayden. I was saying poor Uniswap Hayden, he has nothing to do with this. But we have a new show to run. We have to report on the facts and on what is going on. So unfortunately, we cannot afford the privilege of muting and blocking keywords and parts of the timeline.
Okay, two important questions. One, how many days in a row do you think people can cope with this new cycle? Because you know how people always say in this general industry, oh, people will forget by tomorrow, people will forget in 48 hours. Like, how much do you think people can cope with this new cycle? And how many more days do you think it's actually going to go? And then I'll ask a separate, more personal question in a sec.
Good question. I think it's going to go longer than just a couple of days. I completely had underestimated how far-reaching all of this will be. I remember when Clemente first said he's going to speak on the interviews in Argentinian TV, where he did a very, very great job, by the way. He was like very calm, collected, professional, didn't make it about himself. Love to see that. But I was like, man, this is not going to be such a big story. It's, just one of many, many grifts we've seen in Web3. But ultimately, it is one of the biggest stories in Latin America. It has impacted the stock market. Argentina opened 5.5% down yesterday, something I hadn't, expected to happen. When I posted that, people like, oh, it was obvious. And then I was asking, if it was obvious, why didn't you short Argentinian stocks then? So this has way more impact than I would have expected. So just based on that, because I was wrong with my initial assumption, I'm going to say that this is not over within the next 48 hours. This is going to have more and longer lasting impacts. But I do think that, on the other hand, the timeline will also have more things to focus on again. I mean, we already said yesterday, right? People are talking about KAITO at the same time. Now we have HyperEVM that is suddenly there, obviously also part of the headlines, which we'll get into a bit later in the show. But I do think that we're going to see a more positive distraction. You've been posting in along that sentiment as well. You want to focus on interesting protocols. And I feel like this is going to be a natural progression. Yes, you still want to stay up to date with what's happening, but you're not going to report on it daily and obsess over that daily and have other things to focus on again.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to do a little bit of my mini inspirational messages yesterday, just being like, and actually thinking about it from maybe slightly the other angle. I feel so bad if someone gets shaken out of crypto now, like on the cusp of so many good developments from the political side, from the chain side, where once upon a time, previous cycle, ETH couldn't scale. Solana was still new, didn't have all these apps on it. Like, it's just so much. It's so much more ready to go bigger and to have more proper businesses being built on top of it. And to think that a bunch of people might actually get shaken out of it at this specific point makes me feel really bad. Like, I would feel terrible, and I would hope that no one gets too disheartened. And I think that was kind of leading into my second question, Legendary. You mentioned, like, yeah, feeling a bit down. It's kind of impossible not to feel a bit down being in this space, committing to it for so long. Every single day, we obviously get up here and talk about the good stuff, the bad stuff, the ugly stuff. And yeah, it has felt quite bad. And yet we've tried to figure out a way to look at it through a bit more of an optimistic lens. How are you personally, like, managing to do that, if at all? Like, have you been feeling it quite a lot recently?
I've been feeling it on the portfolio side as well. So, I've been public about that I took a lot of profits in January, banked that in stables. And then I had this post, I think 1 or 2 days ago, that, I'm probably gonna reduce my Solana exposure. And it wasn't the biggest anymore because I sold so much, but I decided to basically sell everything on Solana. Not because I think the chain is dying or it's gonna go to zero or anything. I was like, I just don't I have to have the news exposure to it because we will talk about it and we will report about that. That is our job. I was like, at least I want to cut the financial ties. And like, if I have, a couple hundred more sold or not on there, doesn't like really matter to my personal position. I sold the JLP, sold the Solana, sold basically almost everything, left like a mini bag to, have it just in case I need it for anything, and bridged it back to ETH. So that was like more of a coping strategy basically than the expression of me thinking, "Ooh, this is going to zero," but was like, at least cut those financial ties so I don't have to be thinking, "Ooh, will this affect JLP in any form? What about my liquidity on Meteora? How will this shape?" I was like, nah, at least one thing that I don't have to, actively think about anymore. And then the other thing is also like focusing on the positive things. Obviously, I am moon mathing my KAITO airdrop. I do have quite a few of those yaps. I bought more OTC from Loopify yesterday. Focusing on those things. I'm very curious. I didn't have a chance to play around with Hyperliquid's EVM. I don't know if it's like live yet, to be honest, because you will focus on that piece of news, and I didn't have a chance to prep too much on that on my end. But that's something I want to play around with, and then kind of get back into the more exploratory, curious mindset. And that also extends finally to AVAX and BNB. I think yesterday on the like mini snapshot, you touched on the fact that BNB now also has some sort of liquidity boosting and incentive for stuff launching over there. So just we'll see how this, shapes out and plays out. Basically trying to focus my time. And I said it before the show, it feels like there's like nothing for me to do in the market now because also such a huge part of my portfolio is just sitting in stable coins. And I've always had the stance that I don't put my stable coins at risk, mostly because the rest of my stuff is so risk on. Now the rest of my stuff is not really risk on anymore. And now I'm already thinking my stable strategy through to deploy some of the stables more actively and kind of try to get this emotional alignment with the portfolio, basically. Yeah, aligning emotions and portfolio a bit closer.
So what you think, you think your emotional state is like still used to being risk on, but your portfolio has shifted to being a bit risk off, and you just haven't aligned the two. Is that making sense?
Yeah, exactly. My portfolio is too defensive for my nature, basically.
Yeah, interesting. So it's two things. One, interesting that you're still noticing a couple of pockets of opportunity. As you said, we mentioned the BNB fund that is going into meme coins on a routine basis starting from today. Actually, you need to check the details to see what that is. But if you're not aware of that, that's something they're obviously trying to cultivate, maybe in the same way that AVAX is doing it. I can't directly compare immediately, but like there's clearly some kind of stimulus available there. So interesting to note that. And then from my perspective, the thing that I've been thinking about recently, I just think after all of this stuff, I don't feel obliged to try to catch the knife. Like, I also sold a bunch of Sol, again, also kept some because, might need some on the chain at some point. But I don't feel obliged to, like, when you have the set of stables, like, you know, a lot of people are saying, well, okay, well, a lot of people are feeling that nothing is worthwhile apart from Bitcoin and hype, for example, right now. Those are the two probably favorite assets on the timeline. I don't feel obliged immediately to think that those things are going to run away. Like, as long as this behavior is happening on chain, and we saw another launch from someone yesterday, I think some podcaster slash porn star person, like as long as this stuff just keeps happening and people keep getting wrecked on it, I do not feel obliged to swap even some of the assets which are, you know, adjacent to that, i.e. Sol. I don't feel like I must swap that into Bitcoin right now. I feel like I'm quite happy to just like, I'm going to wait this out for a bit. As you said, I think some of this nonsense is going to take some time for the laundry to get, what's the expression? The laundry to get not dried in public, aired in public. That's the one. We're not going to air the laundry. Like, so all of this stuff going on with Milei, all of this stuff going on with Hayden, all of this stuff going on with all the other influencers, like I think it's going to take a bit more time. And so I agree with you. It's like this little pocket of time where for the first time I messaged someone yesterday and I said, like, I'm going to go to bed at a normal time today. Like, I've really, you know what I've been working like recently. I've been like going over and above. So I went to bed at a normal time. I watched a TV show and I went to bed at a normal time.
Dude,
Maybe that sounds.
Yeah, I called a friend. Was like, "Hey, do you want to have dinner tonight?" And I started to think about, I told you I want to learn golf. I started to look for golf clubs.
No way, you started Googling. That's got to be some kind of sign.
Yeah. Then I was thinking, maybe if I start golf, I could get myself a car to drive to the, to the golf club, stuff like that. I don't know.
Dude, maybe we're in a bear market. Is that what it is? Is this bear market talk?
No, it's not bear market talk.
Do you know what though?
Golf clubs and sports cars.
Well, this is the bear market talk after a good bull market, maybe. Look, we're not being serious necessarily there. However, one thing I would say is that typically extended periods of like either a lull or drops happen after. I mean, you would not be crazy to think after all the things that have happened at the start of this year that we go into some kind of lull. Like, if you were to list all of the things that happened back to back, you would be very within your rights to think, no, we got to sell this shit and do something else for a bit because it's going to take some time to heal as a space, I think. So I'm open to that idea of there being a bit of a lull, no matter what happens on the political side, to be honest. So look, we've digressed a little bit at the beginning, but I thought it might be helpful to do that because I think the space needs it at the moment. We're just kind of trying to feel okay and get comfortable with the situation that we're in. It's not easy. I know a lot of people will not be feeling great at the moment, but as I said, loads and loads of reasons to be optimistic. We're going to keep trying to highlight them as we go through, as always. Right, let's get into the main news today, as usual, starting with the price action we have in the majors. Bitcoin is just down 0.5% to 95.5. We will take that. That is positive news. Only down 0.5%. ETH is down more than that. So that's not as good, but it's not down terribly. Down a few percent to 2.6K. Solana is down more, down almost 9% to $168. So that is obviously the big mover in the majors, down. It's down 17% now in the last 7 days, whereas ETH is flat in the last 7 days. So BNB is down a couple of percent too at $655, up a couple of percent on the week. XRP is up 3% to $2.60. I'm going to keep reporting on XRP and BNB these days. I don't know why, almost culturally, we just skip them over, but they're right up there. So I'm going to keep doing that. Getting into the meme coin side of things, we have Doge down 5% to 25, Pepe down 3. There's a lot of red here, guys. Trump is down 6, Bonk is down 8, WIF is down 8, SPX down 8, Pengu down 10, Brett down 9, AI16Z down 17, AI got crushed, Fartcoin down 27. God, Mogs down 6. All right, you guys get the picture. We're down either high single figures or almost double digits on a lot of this stuff. AI seems to be getting hit harder. ARK down 30%. in the last 24 hours. AIXBT down 18. Right. Did not realize that was the case. We said we were going to be optimistic. That is a lot of red. Guys, hope you're doing okay with that. Getting into the headlines themselves, we've got the Milei interview on Libra scandal going live. He said he did not promote the Libra coin. He shared it. I'm going to break down a little bit more in a bit more detail in a second. He also said things like the vast majority of investors were Chinese and American. Not very many Argentinians were affected. He said that there was at most very few people. There were sophisticated volatility traders trying to justify to his own country that, look, no people really got affected too badly. That was his attempt anyway. We've got some more news on that in a bit. The Meteora founder has resigned, although I didn't see a formal announcement from him. Other people seem to be announcing for him that he's resigned. Jupiter made a statement, as well as a couple of other companies, saying he was not complicit, but did show bad judgment in his interactions with Hayden and Kelsey Ventures. And then finally, HyperEVM has gone live. It's stayed at $25. It pumped up at the moment of the announcement, then dropped back down, and then it's live. No forewarning, no nothing. That's the situation there. Legendary, what's going on the NFT market side of things?
Yeah, NFT market is actually interesting to look at today. We have apes up 4% at a 13.45 ETH floor. We have Pudgies who went a bit lower, also recovered from that, sitting at the 8.92 ETH floor, but overall still down 1.5% over the last 24 hours. Also because it's been mentioned in the YouTube comments, there is currently apparently an exploit on Abstract's global wallet, but from what I have been able to gather quickly before the show, it's not Abstract-wide. It's for people who specifically interacted with one app. I think it's called Cardex, that are affected by that. So definitely keep an eye on that if you have significant funds on Abstract, or just play it safe and bridge out for the time being. Milady's down 3.3%, 3.95 ETH floor for the Milady's collection. Very similar price floor. For Doodles, also down 3%, also 3.95 ETH floor. And finally, Azuki sliding under the 3 ETH floor, 2.97 ETH floor for the Azuki collection, which is down 1%. There's been something going on with OpenSea, but we're going to touch on that as part of the Web3 Roundup.
For sure. Want to say what happened to your beloved KAITO NFTs?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sorry. Let me get them up on screen. KAITO obviously had the snapshot for the airdrop that happened yesterday. So before the snapshot, it did run up all the way to 12.5 ETH, dumped to 2.6-ish ETH at the lowest point before they then again recovered, sitting at a 4.3 ETH floor. But they're down 46% over the last 7 days, and obviously down way more, down 65% over the last 24 hours. There's actually been an announcement by KAITO on how they are thinking about the value of the token, about the apps, and about NFTs. But I think we'll have a bit of a discussion part to get into that as well.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, so looking forward to you talk about that in just a second in that section. Getting into the rest of the Web3 roundup to get up to with everything else, Monad launched their announced their testnet launch will be tomorrow, February the 19th. Highly anticipated chain finally launching its testnet. Been going for a long time. Next, someone burned I think you mentioned this yesterday, Legendary, but we didn't write it in the snapshot. Someone burned $1.4 million in ETH to deliver an on-chain accusation of brain-computer weapons being used to persecute employees. I couldn't get into that. I don't know what on earth is going on. I know, Funky, you shared in the comments to the snapshot. If you want to check it out, you can read further. I don't know what's going on in this space. That was the point yesterday where we dealt with all the other stuff. Then that news happened, and I was like, I can't deal with this today. So please, if someone else can let me know, please do in the comments, and we'll update people. But God knows what's happening. Jupiter accumulates USDC for buybacks starting soon. There's a few people making a point on the timeline yesterday that what's going on with Jupiter? Like, obviously, they're kind of in the conversation with all the stuff that's going on with Meteora. Meow is a co-founder of Meteora as well, and so they're dealing with some of that fallout. But some people were saying, look, they announced these buybacks on the 26th of January. They then said they were starting next week on January the 30th. Then they said they were starting on Monday on February the 13th. Then they said they're going to be buying later on February the 17th. Just like, what's going on, guys? Just buy the damn thing if you said you're going to do it. People kind of raising just a question there, like, what are you doing? Reasonable question, I think, if you're going to announce something and then keep delaying in that kind of non-transparent way. Coinbase Commerce reveals an agent which books appointments and pays. That's pretty cool. Always interested in how the AI agent stuff is developing. Even if the prices are down, like that tech is going to be interesting and important moving forward. Sam Spratt, Masks of Lucy public drawing will take place today. Remember, if you want to participate, there are 68 masks available and you can participate. They're 2.56 ETH. Obviously, on the higher end of digital art. But Sam Spratt is probably one of the best. I am not participating in the drawing, but I've already made my purchase, so I'll be participating in the masquerade. And then next, OpenSea cancels XP farming incentives for bidding and listing after popular pushback. The same incentives on bidding and listing, which I think people are happy to are happy to concede, kind of killed the price of NFTs on Blur, was basically being replicated by OpenSea, and a lot of people pushed back against that, and they've now cancelled that. They said they're going to incentivize buying and holding, and then the rest of the incentives they're going to think of like how else they can incentivize things. So I think that is pretty good for at least your NFT prices in the short term at a minimum. That is the Web3 roundup. Legendary. Anything else that is catching your attention before? I know you want to talk about KAITO, but anything else on that roundup section?
Yeah, the OpenSea one is weird. Like we've seen it in the chart, for example, with apes who went lower and then they had recovered a bit more after that, because ultimately a marketplace makes money by having volume in there. So them saying we're gonna pause XP, in the meantime you get incentive for buying and holding. Like holding does nothing for OpenSea. It's obviously an admission that they had copied the Blur model because they've seen it being successful, and they just don't have a better mousetrap ready. They just don't know what to do. So yes, there's the pushback, and OpenSea already is not very beloved by the timeline. So this was like, okay, we're gonna listen to you. Let's incentivize buying and holding. We know that it doesn't make any sense economically speaking for us as a marketplace who needs volume to make money, but we'll do that in the meantime and think of a better solution.
Yeah, they're going to have to think of something, right? They need to drive volume. That's the whole point of the farming season, which is to drive more volume. And the way Blur had done it, although it was destructive for prices and NFTs, it generated the volume. So if they're not going to do that, they're going to have to think of another way to do it. And I'm not sure that there is one, to be honest. So let's see how that goes. I guess a win for just the public voice at the moment. Maybe the whole fact that the general sentiment in the space has got so poor and people are so sick of entities being extractive. Maybe that's even forced their hand a little bit with that. Look, we just can't do this right now. And then they're going to have to figure out a different way. So I wouldn't be surprised if some like bigger NFT macro factors were at play on some level. Look, before we get into the main headlines, we've got the Milei stuff to get into. We've got the Meteora news and the statements being made around Meteora and the HyperEVM news. Legendary, I know you want to talk about the KAITO news, which we just didn't get a chance to yesterday. I know there's all kinds of negativity around, but that's one shining light at the moment in terms of expectations and price action, and something to be positive about.
Yeah, beautiful segue. Yet I want to say another thing on the roundup though, and it is to do with the 500 ETH that have been burned to send that message on the brain computer weapons. I don't want to talk about brain computer weapons, but Loopify actually made the point that this is one of the utilities of blockchain that we never really think or talk about. If you really need to get a message out that is uncensorable, that can't be deleted, that is going to stay on there, nobody can take it away off the internet, ban that website, etc. That is actually a thing that blockchain can facilitate for you. Because this message is out there, and obviously the more you pay, the more you burn, the more like dramatic you make, the higher its impact will be. But per se, it's a cool feature that this makes messaging and getting something out into the world in very, very uncensorable.
I think that is very cool. My question was going to be, do you have to spend 1.5 million to do that? Or is there like a much lower entry for uncensorable messaging? Do we know the number?
There's a low entry, but you probably pay to get the message out, and the higher the ETH number is that you burn, the more.
I wonder what, like, so I guess it's like a public number, right? I wonder what number makes the public care enough to write that tweet. Like, oh my God, someone burned 1.5 mil. I'm sure they would have done it if it was 1 mil as well. I'm sure they would have done it if it was 500K. But I suspect there's a number where if you don't burn enough, people are just like, it's a useless message.
If it's less than 6 figures, nobody's going to care, really.
6 figures for uncensorable media or content. That is the
beautiful tech.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to different kind of 6 figures. What are KAITO yappers going to get, Legendary? What are you thinking? What was the news yesterday? How's this kind of expectations playing out?
Yeah, absolutely. So quickly recap on that. KAITO's been playing a similar game like Hyperliquid, with actually moving very, very fast. The first thing that people noticed is that the KAITO NFT deployer deployed a token contract 9 days or 10 days ago now. Then they were like, yep, people have discovered this is our KAITO token is coming. Next day after that, they said, by the way, we took the snapshot for Yaps, announced the snapshot for NFTs 1 day later, which happened last night, which is why we addressed the price action on that. And then they also talked to the 3 pillars of what KAITO is basically building to rely on with KAITO Connect. You have the Yaps, which they see as tokenized attention. You have KAITO, which is the medium of exchange and InfoFi enabler, KAITO the token that is. And then you have the Genesis NFTs, the origin community of KAITO. One interesting thing to note is that they also have announced the next pre-TGE leaderboards with the voting for those starting next week. And they said that Yaps will be able to vote as well as on-chain representations, on-chain holdings of KAITO, which obviously could, either mean NFTs can vote, which is something that they had announced for February, or it could also mean that they plan to really rush the TGE out this week. So this is what people have been speculating on, but just wanted to make people aware that there's also another valid read of that, which is, hey, you can vote with your NFTs, which are also on-chain holdings. Does not necessarily mean that that the TGE will happen this week. And in terms of the moon math that has been going on and going around, on-chain Moritz has shared some calculations on that. I think just for a bit of context, obviously when the token was deployed, the KAITO token that is, has been distributed across a couple wallets, multi-sigs, etc. And the split was 33% remained in a wallet, 10% were set aside, the rest was put in a multi-sig. So people were speculating once the big allocation is ecosystem investors, etc., 10% could be for liquidity and 33% could be for the airdrop, which obviously doesn't mean that all of the 33% are to be airdropped now. Very reasonable to think that this is going to happen across multiple seasons, but this is kind of the upper bound that people have established for the potential maximum airdrop if they were to airdrop all of that. And then Moritz in his calculations basically said lower bound could be something like 5% if they airdrop 10% and for whatever weird reason decide to split it half-half between NFTs and the Yappers, which would be a lot for the NFTs, and it's not really reflective of the price action, but those are like the lower and upper bounds of the calc that he did. And then basically arrived at a range from, if you think this is going to trade at around the bill, which is lower than what the pre-market is trading on, and you go with the 5% allocation, and that's $30 a Yap at a 33% allocation, which is way too high in my thinking. But just to have the upper bound established as well, that would be $194. If you think just 2 more numbers, because I'm not going to read the whole table. If you think, that FTV is way too high, maybe more like 500 mil, then at a 10% airdrop, that would still give you the $30 per Yap, which is what I paid for in the OTC market with Loopify. And then the 33% would be $97. So basically, it is a wide range because we don't know the full tokenomics yet. But if you have a nice FTV assumption in your head and you have an airdrop allocation in your head, you can look up the table or you can do your own math, because the numbers of Yaps is obviously now has been snapshot and it's not going to increase before the TG or for the TG relevant part of it.
Interesting. Always appreciate you and the Moon Maths legendary. Shout out to Moritz as well, has been on top of the Moon Maths when it comes to KAITO. Good friend of the show as well. Tom in the comments said 10% for airdrop feels like the sensible thing to do if your KAITO would be between Yaps and NFT. My guess is they do a tiered airdrop. That'd be interesting. Rather than having like some people earning a crazy amount, maybe they might go tiered. They could do. That is within the realms of possibility. One other take I wanted to share on the timeline was David Hoffman's. He's always, one of the founders of Bankless. He said, always on top of like the next big airdrops, as Bankless, I think, have been, one of the main media outlets to work with some of the teams. I think he said, a requested crypto Twitter ahead of the KAITO token launch. CT tends to become extremely toxic when others make a bag, and it's looking like KAITO Yappers are about to get paid. Let's be zen and allow others to have their W. We don't need to scorch earth because we didn't get paid. I definitely think we've reflected on that a little bit, legendary, as well, where I think one of the things, especially on the social ones, that it's just far more annoying for people who've had to deal with it. There's definitely a portion of crypto Twitter that's like, these goddamn yappers, just so annoying. Can we just get back to talking crypto specifically? I kind of sympathize in a way. I think the quality of crypto Twitter, despite it devolving anyway, and it's already been devolving, I think KAITO has manifested some like negative externalities where people are just like they're writing some random post and then just putting a bunch of protocols names in it, hoping to get on the dashboard. So I think the quality has gone down and there will be some animosity towards it. And it's just about managing that as we move forward. Any reflections there, Ledge, before we get into the main headlines of the day?
Yeah, I think that's always the case. I mean, it was done in a completely different way than Portal, where people were spamming that everywhere. And ultimately, if that algo is evolving and will be better at not being gamed and tricked, then all of the engagement farming for Yaps is not gonna work out in the long run. And if you get annoyed by certain people pushing it too far, you can always mute them. So I'm pretty relaxed when it comes to that.
Makes sense. Okay, that's the KAITO stuff done. Fairly optimistic about that. That will be nice. Getting into the main headlines of the day, we've got the Milei news, we've got the Meteora news, and we've got the HyperEVM news. So hitting Milei first. This is just the quick hits from the interview. Remember, yesterday we said that he was going to be doing a public interview. This was basically what happened in the interview. This was reported by Tier 10K. Some key quotes. He said, I didn't promote it, I shared it. This is obviously talking about the Libra token. He said, I acted in good faith and took a hit. When asked about like who lost money, kind of suggested that maybe 4 or 5 Argentinians lost money at most. The vast majority of investors were Chinese and American. He said that his tweet came just 3 minutes after the coin was created because he's passionate about these things and found out about it. And he said the majority of people participating were volatility traders who knew what they were doing. On his relationship with Hayden, remember I'd watched the CoffeeZilla interview with Hayden and reported on that yesterday. We went through the core details there. He was like really optimistic in that interview that Milei was like still going to support the coin. I thought that was pretty naive, but he was like pretty hopeful. And he actually, even though someone has screwed him in this scenario, he was like very positive about Milei. He said like this, he's really positive about what he can do for Argentina and the continent. He said that Hayden proposed creating a structure to finance entrepreneurs who, due to informality, lacked funding options. When Libra became public, I helped spread the word. So he said he didn't promote it, he shared it. It was at most 5,000 people who were affected, very few Argentinians. He said, I did it because I'm a diehard techno optimist. Any initiative that improves financing for tech entrepreneurs interests me. I made no mistakes because I acted in good faith. But when I look at the political repercussions, I realize I have something to learn. I need to understand that after becoming president, I continued acting like the same Javier Milei as before. Unfortunately, this situation shows me that I need to raise my filters and not make myself so accessible. My reading of all of that, Legendary, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, is it was kind of a non-apology. It was like, I am a techno-optimist. This is part of who I am. Like, I'm trying to improve the state of the country. And maybe I think a number of people think that he's taken some good steps already. He thought that this would be another good step to do that, to the extent that it's supposed to fund these businesses, right? Like, obviously, we know with our knowledge and all of the conversations we've had and all the things that have been coming out, there's all this stuff going on Meteora and in the funding side. But to the extent that he thought there would be money going to businesses, that's his claim, that, I didn't do anything wrong. I was trying to promote that. But then at the same time, he's obviously conscious that this is turned into an absolute scandal. Did a very political thing and said, look, although I don't think I did anything wrong for those reasons, I'm the president now, and I should probably filter this stuff better. That would be my key conclusion. The final additional thing, which I'm not sure if people have seen, is this news where I'm showing this on screen for people who are watching in. Apparently there was additional footage released where there was like an advisor that came into the interview and cut it short, and it was available on the live stream, but when they edited it for TV, they took it out. And the advisor stepped in and said, I understand it can cause you a legal mess. I couldn't really understand the crux of it. I don't know if it was particularly well reported on. I think it's just something where, look, advisors do that during interviews. People are going to make it sound like he said something outrageous or crazy, but like in the end, I think in that political moment, I think that's the type of thing that they would do. But look, that's just additional angle for people's context to maybe if they want to go and check it out and get to the bottom of it, they can. But that's it. That's what happened there. There was also the Portnoy interview with Hayden yesterday. I don't know if people saw that. Kind of doubling down on a lot of the things he said already. I think Portnoy kind of thinking that Hayden was not necessarily complicit in it. He said he wasn't going to return the refund that he got. Remember, he received a refund from Hayden personally, whereas a lot of other people just lost the money. I'll stop there. Legendary. What are your thoughts, reflections? How is this shaking out for you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a very political or politician-like answer or statement to make. It's very hard to judge on the initial intentions of that. Obviously, I don't believe that the initial intention was to do a pump and dump as the president of Argentina. On the other hand, you are the president of a fairly large country, and if you do something in an environment that you're not really understanding and you can't be an expert on everything, and as a high-ranking politician, you have to make decisions on so many topics that you don't really understand. So this is why you get advisors. If you get the wrong people, then stuff like that can happen, but not taking any blame for that is also not really how the world really should work, in my opinion. So it's very hard to say anything of substance on that statement because it's lacking of substance, really. It's not taking responsibility. It's still like focusing, but there were those good intentions. So it's hard to say anything like more.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that someone obviously pulled the plug. Like, I mean, if it were true that he thought that all of those things were good, then why did they pull the plug? Like, if you believe, if you're a techno optimist and you think that all those things are excellent and the intention was good, who pulled the plug and why? Like, there are obviously other people involved here, right? And that would be the key question. If you're doubling down on it and saying that the intention was good, who pulled the plug and why? A further question, this was pretty random that I don't know if people saw, and then I think we're going to just keep it moving to the Meteora stuff, because as you said, on this political level now, this is above everyone's pay grade. I think we're not going to dwell on it too much. But there was also an entity that bought Libra yesterday for $5 million worth of Libra, a same wallet that sniped $1 million of Trump in the first block of its launch. And they did that just before, or just as Milei retweeted how to buy Libra tweet yesterday. It's like, even after all this stuff happened, there was a retweet on how to buy Libra from the main account. So like, guys, I don't know what's going on here. It's like, it's so nonsensical that whoever was in charge of the account was pressing retweet on that type of content. And God, like at this point, who knows what's going on? I don't know if there's anything more to say on that Legendary, or whether we want to just slide straight into the Meteora stuff. I'm at a loss as to why that could be retweeted, but happy for you to take it into the next news or reflect on that.
Yeah, I will take Kashmir's words from the YouTube comments. They are more clearer than what I've been like trying to say. He's saying, I don't get why all these idiots release memes and shit on Sol. Why not drop a proper token with the right tokenomics and get to make it work for each country? Actually think a country-based token done, that's my addition, sorry. Actually, I Legendary think that a country token done the right way would be something interesting to see, but definitely agree that those meme coins, country-based meme coins ain't it. Anyhow, as you said, let's move on to the next piece of news. That is something where we can report on more concretely, and it's definitely more within our pay grade, as you beautifully said, and it is to do with Meteora and all the things that have been going on around in terms of the market manipulation after there was this leaked recording of a call by Moti, the founder of DeFi Tuna, and that basically has shed a bit more light on what is going on with Kelsier, what is going on with the launch pads. And just to summarize Moti's allegations against Kelsier and against the Meteora leadership, Kelsier was involved in a structured scheme extracting large sums from meme coin launches on Meme. Meteora's leadership, including Ben, facilitated a network of influencers who profited significantly at the expense of the community. Despite direct outreach to Meteora's core contributors, little accountability was observed from their side, and Ben, the co-founder of Meteora, indicated he would step down after being confronted, but issued a vague public response, which is something that you had pointed out before, that he has stepped down voluntarily, but there's like no very, very clear statement on that to be found. Then there's a couple of WhatsApp messages that have been leaked on that, and they've been all over the timeline. Basically, some of them included how to max extract. That was a specific wording used by Hayden in the case of a specific launch. Then asking questions about how to basically set up very profitable LPs, offer white glove service for LPs, and more evidence or texts, etc., that are pointing towards that market manipulation and the rigged launches. There's been a couple of very prominent comments on that on the timeline, including ICOBs, which I'm sharing on the screen, who said that this video, just a call recording that I addressed before, is the most damning video he's seen in 7 years of playing this game. Solana is, in his opinion, over for the foreseeable futures. Meme coins were supposed to be a fun experiment. They were speedrun to max crime. The party is over. People will go to jail. The shit was max illegal. And this is the sort of thing that regulators and prosecutors will make examples out of people for. Just to also obviously cover the other side of that, which is the Jupiter side and the protocol side and what they had to say officially on that. And that post is from Cash Thunder from Jupiter, who's saying that Meteora is a powerful piece of tech. Yes, it was used by scammers. That does not mean that Meteora or Hello Chow are scammers. Ben never leaked information, never sniped, never received compensation for a launch, never had access to any celebrity tokens. He's not responsible for the insider trading or the failures of tokens launched to Meteora. He did make a mistake, however. That was not an illegal mistake, or was it unethical? It was a strategic mistake, which is to trust someone he really should not have trusted. And that obviously goes to the Kelsey Ventures and Hayden Davis, who we addressed before. And then one final opinion that I also want to get on is from Alain, one of the co-founders of Pump Fun, who's also saying that it's hoping that people responsible for that get what they deserve. Situation is still unfolding. And, you know, he says that this incident are also hurting Pump Fun, which was built to explicitly tackle some of the issues that have been exposed over the past day. And this concept of a middleman, and that to me is the interesting point in his statement, like development teams and market makers, is absurd because creating a meme coin should be so stupidly simple that anyone can do it. And the mere existence of such actors means that anyone can easily be taken advantage of.
Great summary, Legendary. going in the direction of questioning why this stuff has got so complicated. I do think snipers do pose a problem to people, but I think you made this point yesterday. It's like, yes, if you are desperately trying to make meme coins work, then I can see a scenario where you might have to get a hold of the supply of your coin because this is the mechanism that you've chosen rather than someone else holding it. I can actually see a universe where you might have to do that because if you don't do it, someone else does. That doesn't necessarily mean you then sell it all for profit and then use it to inject the chart up again. But like, I can see why someone else who might dump your token, like snipers are an issue, I think. So some kind of solution to that, it might need thinking through. However, you made this point yesterday, which is if the purpose of all of this is capital formation, or at least it's supposed to be, or maybe this is the key question, right? What is the purpose of this purchase? Is it capital formation for a cause? Because if it is, then you can do this in a safe way with no snipers. You can do some type of ICO. You can do an whitelisted NFT sale. Think of all the ways, think of all the people that Mega ETH just got involved in their Fluffle NFT mint, like a very curated, whitelisted event for 5,000 people who are buying with a specific intention to raise money for something. Like, there's no snipers there. It's only because we're trying to force meme coins to work and everyone's like, oh, but there's going to be snipers. Like, yeah, because you're doing a meme coin. It's not the only way to form capital. There are other very legitimate ways to form capital. But if the purpose is not to form capital, which is what I'm actually suggesting that it is not to form capital. It is just to play the game, to make the number go up and for people to make money. And in that instance, you obviously have this scenario where we don't actually want to form the capital. It's just supposed to make money and hopefully other people make money at the same time. And so that's why you get this situation. So I think the game that people are playing is a stupid game, obviously. And everything is downstream of that. Like, yes, all of this stuff is very, very bad, but the game itself, it's not capital formation. And I think when people started talking about internet capital markets, I think that didn't help people because this is not capital formation. If you wanted to do internet capital markets, you can do what Mega ETH did and do like a very curated quality raise of specific people and raise a ton of money. That is internet capital markets, right? It's on the internet. They raised a ton of money. Isn't that the point? I don't think it is the point half the time. And I think that's the issue. Legendary reflections before we hit the final news for 5 minutes.
Exactly, yeah. If you actually want to build something, there is so many other ways to launch a token if you have good intentions for that. There's no perfect way. Like, I'm not falling victim to this illusion that there is a perfect way to launch something that is very high in demand and has a limited quantity, that has scarcity. There's no perfect way to do that. You mentioned Mega ETH as an example. I think the team tried their best to curate the list. There's been problems with that. There's been people who had issues to go through the AML check, et cetera, et cetera. Some people might have to serve the spot and didn't get one. That's always going to be the case. There's no perfect solution for that. But I think ultimately the intention and trying your best to make it as good as possible is what matters. And launching it as a pump fund or launching a meme coin and sniping it yourself, if you're actually trying to build something and not, releasing a cash grab, is definitely not the best effort.
Yeah, I think that's the core thing people need to just reinsert back into their heads. Like, what is the purpose? Like, what am I doing here? Like, what is the purpose of me deploying this capital into this thing? Is this capital formation because I'm investing into something that actually wants to pool my capital in order to do something? Because if it is honestly that, the way that they would launch is not via a meme coin. Like, it's just not. And people need to be honest with themselves about that. I think everyone deep down knows that. But, the game was fun for a long period of time and lots of people played the game. We played the game. Everyone plays the game. We're like participating in the meme coin game, right? So people are participating, but then at least just know what it is. It's fun. It's a stupid game. And that's probably the final reflection. Let's get into the hype news far more positive, to be honest. The thing that I love about the hype news, remember, Hyperliquid has launched a product first, right? Hyperliquid is this decentralized exchange that operates kind of over on Arbitrum, but then they want to launch their own chain. It's been doing crazy volume for a long period of time. They've been listing perps much faster than everyone else. They've been stealing everyone's volume, doing huge numbers. The airdrop was huge. The coin went to, I think it's like the 25th largest coin in all of crypto now. And one of the hallmarks of this team is that they just don't mess around. Like they don't announce that they're going to list things. They just list them. And they clearly didn't even, I mean, people knew that they were working on the EVM on the chain, but they didn't say like it's coming next week, it's coming next week and next month or whatever. They just dropped it. So this is the news in the last 24 hours that the EVM is live. The initial mainnet release of the HyperEVM includes blocks built as part of L1 execution, inheriting all security from HyperBFT consensus, spot transfers between native spot hype and HyperEVM hype. As a reminder, hype is the native gas token. So they are going to be using hype as the gas token on the HyperEVM. And yeah, it's launched. This guide by Tom shows how you can get over to mainnet. You need to have some hype in your spot Hyperliquid account, and then you have to send it to your following address. I also recommend, I might just share this on screen for people who are watching in. Tom's product, which is gas.zip, is a really good way to get onto new chains. He typically ships things quite quickly. And you know, when you don't have the native token on a chain and you're trying to figure out like how do I get over and have some native thing, like there's a mechanism on the site to make sure you have some of the native token there when you get there. So gas.zip is a pretty good app. Not sponsored, just a good product that I use sometimes. That's what's going on with Hyperliquid. The price action did not particularly well, it was funny because there's no announcement. The price initially ripped for like a minute or two, and then it crashed back down. It's basically just flat at $25, no particular change as such. But it's funny to watch the price action when there was no, it wasn't like buy the news. Sorry, it wasn't buy the rumor, sell the news. It was buy the news because you didn't know that the news was there, and then sell the news once everyone realizes that that's the news, if you see what I mean. Anyway, that's that. Legendary reflections on hype. Any thoughts there? Still bullish on it? Still thinking about it a lot? How's that part of your portfolio at the moment?
Big fan of the launch, big fan of the communication around that to just do it. Personally would have thought that might come out later. And I think just in contrast to Monad, who, you know, even Berachain, who people have been waiting for ages, and Monad is announcing the launch of the testnet, which is nothing unusual. It's just how we do business in this space. It's just very refreshing to see someone following a different playbook and just releasing the stuff once it's ready. And also, you know, then acknowledging, hey, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be polished on day one. It's probably not even easy to access it if you don't know tools to get your hype ready as the gas token for HyperEVM. But it's out there, and you've seen that, you know, market participants are not used to that. Hence, this very confused price action of, ooh, something's happening, pumping up the price. Wait, this was the announcement? There's no more hyping up of an announcement? Okay, so let's go back to the price just before the announcement, but very much like that. And I think I recently posted that I got myself a Hypeo as, as an NFT. Still holding hype. I do want to participate in it. I'm going to be curious to see what some of the first applications are that we can play around with on that chain.
Sounds good. I'm of the same opinion. I've been like trading in and out of hype just because I've just been trading the chop. But I definitely want to participate. I want to participate. I need to have some hype to participate. So I'm going to be watching closely how they build out. I think the integration with Bitcoin is pretty important. Oxy, your hand was raised. Welcome to the stage, my friend. Final question, comment, take before we close out for the day.
Yeah, thank you. I've seen people with like kind of counterpoints on like, why would they do it this way? Kind of a thing. I feel like this is the perfect time to do it. I mean, everything's going to hell on Solana. Everyone, like, generally everyone has a pretty good feeling about hype. I mean, it feels like the perfect time to launch right now when everything's kind of going to hell somewhere else, where they can capitalize on people maybe trying to find something else. I don't know. I love this way of doing things personally.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think people are incredibly drained at the moment, like more so than ever from all of the events that have happened. And also, if you think about it as well, just from the project perspective, people are waiting and waiting and waiting for a lot of things. Like teams have been waiting to launch, investors are waiting for their teams to launch. I think there's a lot of pent-up frustration in the market in general for that. And then on top of that, we've just gone through the most hellish month or so of euphoria and then disappointment and then anger and then whatever the period is we're going through now. And so, yes, some team that just comes along, doesn't say anything, just keeps shipping over and over and over again. Yeah, that feels pretty good. And like when I saw that today, it just felt good. Like I have relatively small amount of hype, but it just felt good to see people doing good things. And I think that at the moment in this space, that's just what people want to see some people like executing, shipping, and trying to push the space forward in a positive way. And that's what we need. And so that's what we will continue to champion when we see it. Hope that was helpful, guys. That is our show for the day. As usual, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern time for 1 hour. We will be back again with you tomorrow. Thanks so much, Legendary, for co-hosting with me. Thanks, Oxy, for that comment. Thanks to the boys in the YouTube comments going off as usual. And thanks, Funky, for being back up with us on stage as well. Take care, guys. Have a wonderful day. And we'll be back again with you tomorrow. Bye-bye.